Folks, Will Brink here, Brinkstone.com. Going to cover a old topic, but a really tough topic to cover simply and straightforward for people, which is the concept of gaining muscle and losing body fat simultaneously. I'm actually out here having a cup of my bomb-proof coffee, and you can grab that free recipe right here if you want to try it. It gets my brain really focused and gives me a lot of energy for the day. Okay, so back to the topic. This is actually not that easy a topic to cover and causes a lot of confusion for people about can they gain muscle and lose fat simultaneously. Now, the basic mantra, the basic physiology, the basic physics, what have you, is to lose weight, you basically need to be in a calorie deficit, whether that's through increased energy flux, i.e. more exercise, whether that's eating less, whether that's doing both, what have you. To gain weight, physiologically speaking, hormonally speaking, and so forth, you need to be in a calorie surplus. And that's the basic premise, that's the basic physics and the basic physiology to gain muscle mass or gain weight. And what happens when we say that is then a lot of people get confused or they get resistant, and they say, well, you know, I've done that, I've gained some muscle and lost body fat, so of course, you know, that muscle, that must be wrong. Or I knew so-and-so who gained muscle and lost body fat, and so forth. And so that we get into this kind of headbutting thing between, you know, the science-minded types like myself and other people who sort of going more by what they would consider real-world effects. And the fact is neither one of them is necessarily incorrect. And so I'm going to try to explain this in straightforward, techie way. The model is correct. It's not that you cannot gain muscle and lose fat simultaneously. The fact is that neither one of them will be optimal. One of them will be compromised when you are trying to do both simultaneously. And I'm going to give some practical examples, and maybe this will help people understand this. For example, from a training perspective, if you trained simultaneously for a marathon and a powerlifting meet, I don't think it's hard for people to understand that one or both of those would be compromised. You would not excel in both of those simultaneously. Now, if you were to train for a powerlifting meet for 6 months and then went to the meet, and then you trained for a marathon for 6 months and then ran the race, you would probably do a lot better at both of them. And I don't think that's hard to understand. Now, so from a physiological point of view, nutritionally or hormonally or so, it's the same thing when you're trying to gain muscle and lose fat simultaneously. It's not that it can't be done, but one or both of those goals will not be optimal. So let's take two people, twin brothers. One is going to basically train and eat and so, with the goal of trying to gain muscle and lose fat simultaneously. The other one is going to focus on a fat or a muscle gaining phase for 6 months, followed by a fat loss phase for 6 months. So the first 6 months they're training, their calories, their protein, the whole deal is focused on gaining muscle while maintaining or at least minimizing an increase in body fat. Again, there's a lot of details you could go into that, but basically the goal is focusing the metabolism, the body, and the training and the whole thing on gaining muscle mass for a period of time. I'm going to say 6 months, followed by a period of time where you are focused on fat loss, which again means a change in nutrition. It can mean a change in programming, in your training, and so forth. The other person for that entire year is just going to focus on sort of the amorphous gaining muscle and losing body fat. Well, what will happen is at the end of the year, 12 months goes by, the person who took a specific block of time to focus on a goal, a specific goal followed by another block of time focused on the goal, will have gained more muscle and lost more fat than the person who just tried to do both simultaneously. I hope that brings a real world example of what I'm talking about. Now, the guy who tried to or focused on gaining muscle simultaneously and losing fat simultaneously probably will have added some muscle and lost some fat. But compared to the other guy who actually took a phase of time to focus on that specific goal, followed by another focus, will have done both and done it in a superior fashion. And that is what at least scientists mean, and nutritionists and stuff mean, by saying you can't gain muscle and lose body fat simultaneously. And that's, I think saying can't is too much. You can, but the fact of the matter is one or both of them will be disappointing. You will not generally do both to the satisfaction of what you wanted. And what happens is a lot of programs out there and a lot of gurus and a lot of books and such are trying to convince people, usually young guys, but not always, that they can gain muscle and lose body fat simultaneously, and it confuses them. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. That is, like, people brand new to resistance training can preferentially put on a fair amount of muscle early on, and then it tends to level off pretty quickly. People coming back from a layoff due to injury or what have you, who have been resistance trained prior to, can also early on tend to have a pretty quick increase in muscle mass and strength. And of course, people that have had various drugs and hormones and stuff are also going to have some preferential ability to add muscle mass and lose body fat and so forth. So there are some exceptions, but again, the general rule is if you are trying to lose body fat and gain muscle simultaneously, you are trying to metabolically serve two different masters, physiologically serve two different masters, and it doesn't tend to work very well. Again, it doesn't mean it can't be done, but I will tell you that you will get superior results as a rule in both gaining muscle and losing body fat if you focus on one goal first, whichever it may be, and then the other goal. And again, those time periods of how long that lasts, that can vary. That depends on the program. The numbers I'm giving are just sort of generalizations to let you sort of hone in on real-world examples of how you would go about this. And it does take some patience, but I will tell you again, having worked with hundreds, thousands of people in terms of feedback and through my books and hands-on, those people who took the patience to focus on gaining muscle and minimizing increases in body fat, followed by maintaining muscle mass while losing the body fat and doing those in proper cycles, by the end of a time period, whether it is a year, 6 months, 2 years, generally will have gained more muscle and lost more body fat over time than the person who just kind of stumbles along trying to come up with sort of these mixtures of programs and diets that attempt to do both. Attempting to do both just really doesn't tend to optimize the effect of one or the other. So I hope, without trying to explain the science and what have you, and using real-world examples of the controversy of gaining muscle and losing body fat and why that tends to be sort of such a debate and a fight, now you can wrap your mind around it and say, okay, well that makes some sense. I see what he's trying to say. Hopefully it does. If it does, like this video, and see you all on the Brink Zone.